Hi, I'm David Fitch, and I'm going to be the heaviest marathon runner in the world. I posted a while ago about how I was trying to become the heaviest marathon runner in the world, and I haven't updated in a while. So now I'm going to explain something I learned a couple months ago, which was a harsh realization. And that is that you can't go too hard in the beginning. You have to build a solid base before you really try to add too much volume to your training. I have seen significant progress in my running, but also for about half the time I've been running so far, I've been injured. Maybe not half anymore, but for a period it was maybe half the time I was injured because I kept injuring my knee. I think it was something that was completely avoidable, but I was making a lot of mistakes in the beginning. In my head I was thinking I want to be the best. In order to become the best, you have to do the most amount of work. Do what no one else wants to do. So instead of taking it easy, focusing on my stretching, focusing on building strength first, building up the mileage over time, a couple weeks into my training, I was on the treadmill for 45 minutes a day, running as fast as I can. I only had a basic running ability at this point, and I was still doing probably 30 miles a week, which was definitely way too much for how long I've been running. Eventually, I started to have a lot of pain behind my knee, which I didn't know what it was, but it felt like it was pounding. So, following the same methods I've used in the past, I decided I was just going to try to run through it. And it was just getting worse and worse every day. I kept thinking, hey, it's just going to heal. I'll just, rest when I'm not at the gym and everything's going to be all right. But eventually, maybe a couple weeks after that, it's so bad that I can barely walk. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to take some time off. It just keeps getting worse and worse, which results in me being on crutches because I literally can't walk at all, just limping everywhere I go. And it probably took me 3 weeks to get back into running. And for someone who literally runs until his knee nearly splits in half, being out for 3 weeks means it was definitely a really bad injury. So I figured I needed to recalibrate my goals here and figure out what I did wrong, how I can improve in the future. Because obviously if I'm injured the whole time, I'm not going to see any progress. After I started getting back into it, maybe I was running for a couple weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, I don't know. And then the injuries started to creep back up on me, so I obviously wasn't fully healed. But this time I was a little bit more cautious, so I backed off earlier on. I was probably only hurt for about a week this time. So that one wasn't nearly as bad. I didn't have time off. In both cases, they weren't really too detrimental to my running goals because I was out for 1 week to 3 weeks, but on both occasions when I got back into running, I was hitting PRs. So I was actually running faster after the injury than before the injury. My reasoning or my guess for why that is just giving the muscles the time to heal, just maybe come back stronger. If I was running 45 minutes a day, 6 days a week, it's possible that my body was just exhausted and just wasn't ready to keep going. So, I may have been healing from an injury, but also my muscles were healing, which could have just put me in a better place to run faster. So I was actually hitting personal records as soon as I started running again after the injury, so didn't really set me back that, too much, but I still learned a lesson. Regardless, I noticed a problem, which is that I was getting injured very easily, so I still needed to come up with some measures to try to mitigate that a little bit and improve whatever was causing the problem in the first place. One thing I noticed is that my flexibility is not where it needed to be. I would feel that it was pulling on my joints a little bit every time I was running because I just didn't have the flexibility. So even though I could run, it was uncomfortable, especially in my ankles. When I started running, they would definitely get a little bit painful, but not from stomping on it. It was more like a flexibility issue where it was just out of its comfort zone. So one thing I definitely thought was important for getting back into it was to focus on my flexibility. So I'll do a lot of stretching before, I'll do stretching at my house. Now I feel way more flexible, and now the running is so much easier, but it also feels like my joints and my muscles and everything are how they're supposed to be when I'm running. Another problem that I detected, or think that I detected, could have to do with the strength of the muscles around the joints. Sometimes knee injuries like that can be caused by muscular imbalances. Now, I used to do a lot of powerlifting, so my quads are pretty strong. My legs used to be strong, but this was 10 years ago, so I figured it's definitely important to focus on my leg strength a lot more now, doing more high repetition, but more workouts. So I started doing a lot of workouts for my legs, maybe every other day in the beginning, and now I'm slowing down to maybe about twice a week. I've placed extra emphasis on the hamstrings because I've worked out my quads a lot more in the past, so I'm not as concerned about them, but my hamstrings, I definitely think need more strength and want to make sure that they're balanced properly in order to support the leg the way you're supposed to while it's running. Also, the calf raises because, again, I was having discomfort around my ankles, not from the pounding, but more from the movement. So I figured I definitely need to strengthen the muscles around my ankles and my calves. I figured that's probably also going to help stabilize it. So if you think about it, running isn't too high impact, but it is still pretty high impact. So your joints are at risk, but the stronger your muscles are, the better it's kind of like a glue that's gonna hold your joints together. So I definitely felt it's important to strengthen my muscles and my legs as much as possible to prevent further injuries and just protect the joints in general, so I'm not pounding on my knees. I definitely notice a difference if I'm just running or doing any type of lifting, that if you flex around the joint, right? You don't want to, if you're benching, you don't want to just push, you want to flex around the joint. It's going to help protect it. It makes it feel a lot more stable, makes your joint feel healthier, gives you less pain. So I definitely trying to strengthen the muscles around there, as well as focusing on flexing around my knee while I run to help stabilize the kneecap. Because if I feel like I'm running but I'm not stabilizing, because I don't have as much running experience. Maybe some people do it naturally, but I need to make sure I stabilize the knees as much as possible while I am running, so that I prevent injuries in that case also. After improving those two areas, my knees do feel 100% better. It feels a lot more stable. I've been running no problem. I'm not coming home and my legs are tired or my knees hurt. None of those problems. I pretty much just come home, I do my normal thing, and I'm ready for the next day. So definitely think I'm seeing a lot of improvements there. I also decreased the volume because the amount of miles I was running per week for someone that new was definitely too much. So now instead of doing 45 minutes a day for 6 days a week, I'm now doing 5 days a week for 30 minutes each day. And then as the months go on, maybe every month, I'm going to add a little bit more volume to it. My speed's going up, so I add volume in that sense. But in terms of time, so I'll spend a little bit more time. I might add a 6-day next month, which is in like about 10 days. And then every month after that, I might add something else to make the workouts a little bit better. Mostly my slow runs are going to get longer. So instead of 30 minutes, 45 minutes. But that's not next month. I'm going to do that later on, maybe the month after. The workouts can start going to 45 minutes. So especially the slower runs, because that's marathon training. I'm focusing on my speed right now, but I still need to get the endurance going. I think that's also going to help me for my speed, because I'm not sprinting. The miles considered a short distance for me. So if I can recommend anything to anyone, it's that before you get into any type of heavy duty training, whether it's marathon training or lifting weights, definitely focus on the basics first. I'm not an expert, but strengthen your legs as much as possible if you're going to do a lot of miles. Also, don't do too many miles at the beginning. Ease your way into it. Work on your flexibility. Lifters don't like to stretch, but it really does make a difference when you're trying to protect your joints and everything. So I wish I did all that stuff in the beginning so I didn't have the injuries, but I'm still seeing fantastic progress. So I'm not too worried about all that. When I first started running, I was running 5 miles an hour. That's a 12-minute mile, and I was struggling to go for even 5 minutes. So that was pretty slow, and now I can run a mile in about, my fastest so far, 6 minutes and 40 seconds. So I've definitely seen significant improvements despite the injuries. So I'm optimistic that I can get my mile down to 5 minutes relatively soon, maybe a couple months, say 3 months, I don't know, maybe even longer, 4 or 5, whatever, that's fine. After I get my mile down to 5 minutes, I'm going to focus more heavily on increasing the endurance and the distance so that I can maintain 5-minute miles for the whole marathon. And of course, keep my weight. Not just keep my weight at 185. I need to then gain weight to get up to maybe 210 pounds. And then I can become the heaviest marathon runner in the world. So I'll keep stretching. I'll keep working out my legs. I'll slowly build up the volume. And hopefully I'll become the heaviest marathon runner in the world. And I appreciate anyone who watches the journey.